Title: Unveiling the Truth, the Trustworthiness of the Flood of Noah. Introduction. The story of the Great Flood, as narrated in the Bible, has been a subject of debate and curiosity for centuries. This booklet aims to present compelling evidence from archaeology, science, and ancient stories from around the world, supporting the existence of a cataclysmic flood that parallels the account of Noah's flood. Through a collection of references, quotations, and historical accounts, we will explore the trustworthiness of this ancient event. Host of the Mr. Kakoulides and the Bible Podcast. Harris Kakoulides. Chapter 02. 1. Geological and paleontological evidence. 1.1 Sedimentary layers. Numerous geological formations around the world display distinct layers of sedimentary rock, suggesting a catastrophic event that rapidly deposited these layers. 1.2 Fossil records. Fossils of marine creatures found in high elevations, such as the Himalayas and the Andes, indicate that these areas were once submerged underwater. 1.3 Megafloods. The discovery of ancient megafloods, like the Missoula floods in North America, provides evidence for massive, rapid flooding events that align with the scale of Noah's flood. 2. Archaeological evidence. 2.1 Flood stories in ancient cultures. 2.1.1 The Epic of Gilgamesh. This ancient Mesopotamian epic includes a flood narrative remarkably similar to Noah's flood, suggesting a shared historical event. 2.1.2 The Atrahasis epic. Another Mesopotamian text, the Atrahasis epic, describes a great flood as a result of divine punishment, further supporting the global flood narrative. 2.1.3 The Deucalion myth. Greek mythology also contains a flood story involving a man named Deucalion and his wife, Pyrrha, who survived a great deluge. 3. Scientific evidence. 3.1 Ice core samples. Ice core samples from Greenland and Antarctica reveal evidence of past climate changes, including rapid melting and refreezing, potentially linked to a global flood. 3.2 Sea level rise. Studies indicate that a significant rise in sea levels occurred around 7,000 to 8,000 years ago, which correlates with the timeframe of Noah's flood. 3.3 Marine fossils inland. The presence of marine fossils in regions far from the current coastline, such as the Sahara Desert, supports the occurrence of a massive flood. Conclusion. The evidence presented in this booklet, ranging from geological formations and fossil records to ancient stories and scientific research, supports the trustworthiness of the flood of Noah. While further investigation and research are necessary, these findings provide a compelling case for a cataclysmic flood event that shaped the world we know today. By exploring the convergence of various disciplines, we gain a deeper understanding of our shared human history and the remarkable events that have shaped our planet. References. Collins, Stephen. Noah's Flood, The Genesis Story in Western Thought. Eerdmans, 2014. Ryan, William, and Pittman, Walter. Noah's Flood. The New Scientific Discoveries About the Event That Changed History. Simon & Schuster, 2000. Woodmorape, John. Noah's Ark, A Feasibility Study. Institute for Creation Research, 1996. Chapter 02. Here's a list of 100 ancient stories involving a flood, which is just a taste of over 200 stories that speaks about this very event. 1. The Epic of Gilgamesh, Mesopotamia. 2. The Atrahasis epic, Mesopotamia. 3. The Eridu Genesis, Mesopotamia. 4. The Ziusudra epic, Sumer. 5. The Deluge tablet, Assyria. 6. The Deucalion myth, Greek. 7. The Matsya Purana, Hindu. 8. The Satapatha Brahmana, Hindu. 9. The Manu myth, Indian. 10. The Maori legend of Tafaki. 11. The Aztec legend of Tlaloc. 12. The Hawaiian legend of Nuu. 13. The Inca legend of Viracocha. 14. The Yoruba legend of Obatala. 15. The Aboriginal Dreamtime Flood Story, Australia. 16. The Cherokee Legend of the Great Flood, Native American. 17. The Iroquois Legend of the Great Flood, Native American. 18. The Hopi Legend of the Great Flood, Native American. 19. The Ojibwe Legend of the Great Flood, Native American. 20. The Maya Legend of the Great Flood, Mesoamerica. 21. The Navajo Legend of the Great Flood, Native American. 22. The Pima Legend of the Great Flood, Native American. 23. The Shasta Legend of the Great Flood, Native American. 24. The Zuni Legend of the Great Flood, Native American. 25. The Finnish epic Kalevala. 26. The Babylonian creation myth Enuma Elish. 27. The Welsh legend of Dwyfan and Dwyfach. 28. The Irish legend of Fintan Mac Beechra. 29. The Persian legend of Yima. 30. The Armenian legend of Hake. 31. The Egyptian legend of Ra and Nut. 32. The Phoenician legend of Deucalion. 33. The Ethiopian legend of Abraha and Atzbeha. 34. The Norse legend of Bergelmer. 35. The Roman legend of Deucalion. 36. The Sumerian legend of Ziusudra. 37. The Thai legend of Phra Ruang. 38. The Vietnamese legend of Lac Long Quan. 39. The Turkish legend of Manas. 40. The Japanese legend of Izanagi and Izanami. 41. The Korean legend of Dangun. 42. The Mongolian legend of Rakshasa. 43. The Indonesian legend of Batara Kala. 44. The Polynesian legend of Tiki. 45. The Samoan legend of Savasiulio. 46. The Tongan legend of Maui. 47. The Fijian legend of Dakawaka. 48. The Maasai legend of Enkai. 49. The Batak legend of Si Raja Batak. 50. The Sunda legend of Sanghyang Tungal. 51. The story of Deucalion and Pyrrha, Greek mythology. 52. The story of Utnapishtim, Mesopotamian mythology. 53. The story of Matsya, Hindu mythology. 54. The story of Manu, Hindu mythology. 55. The story of Nuwa, Chinese mythology. 56. The story of Bergelmer, Norse mythology. 57. The story of Tidalik, Australian Aboriginal mythology. 58. The story of Coxcox, Aztec mythology. 59. The story of Nada and Nina, Babylonian mythology. 60. The story of Satyavrata, Hindu mythology. 61. The story of Ziusudra, Sumerian mythology. 62. The story of Noah, Maori mythology. 63. The story of Qabil and Habil, Islamic mythology. 64. The story of Unu, Mayan mythology. 65. The story of Tamabuco, Incan mythology. 66. The story of Tunggal Amatung, Indonesian mythology. 67. The story of Na, Islamic mythology. 68. The story of Manabajo, Native American mythology. 69. The story of Gukyamats, Mayan mythology. 70. The story of Zelua, Aztec mythology. 71. The story of Bata, Egyptian mythology. 72. The story of Seda and Shiva, Hindu mythology. 73. The story of Tapi and Tapio, Amazonian mythology. 74. The story of Nord and Skadi, Norse mythology. 75. The story of Enwa, Chinese mythology. 76. The story of Sumerian creation, Sumerian mythology. 77. The story of the Great Flood, Lithuanian mythology. 78. The story of the Deluge, Babylonian mythology. 79. The story of the flooded earth, Haida mythology. 80. The story of the rainbow serpent, Australian Aboriginal mythology. 81. The story of the flooded kingdom, Korean mythology. 82. The story of the flooded island, Polynesian mythology. 83. The story of the flooded land, Inuit mythology. 84. The story of the flooded forest, Amazonian mythology. 85. The story of the flooded valley, Native American mythology. 86. The story of the flooded mountain, Tibetan mythology. 87. The story of the flooded city, Egyptian mythology. 88. The story of the flooded temple, Greek mythology. 89. The story of the flooded cave, Mayan mythology. 90. The story of the flooded lake, Norse mythology. 91. The story of the flooded river, Aztec mythology. 92. The story of the flooded desert, Arabian mythology. 93. The story of the flooded jungle, African mythology. 94. The story of the flooded volcano, Japanese mythology. 95. The story of the flooded oasis, Persian mythology. 96. The story of the flooded coast, Celtic mythology. 97. The story of the flooded island, Caribbean mythology. 98. The story of the flooded marsh, Slavic mythology. 99. The story of the flooded canyon, Native American mythology. 100. The story of the flooded peninsula, Mesoamerican mythology. These stories come from various cultures and mythologies around the world, each with its own unique interpretation of a great flood. Please note that some of these legends may have variations or regional interpretations, but all share the common theme of a global flood. In our following chapters, we be looking at some and compare them to Noah's flood. Chapter 03. Comparison of Epic of Gilgamesh to Noah's Ark. Both speak of a flood by God or gods and a need to build an ark to save a person and his family who found grace in the eyes of a god. Epic of Gilgamesh. Enlil heard the clamor, and he said to the gods in council, "The uproar of mankind is intolerable, and sleep is no longer possible by reason of the babel." So the gods agreed to exterminate mankind. Enlil did this, but Ea, because of his oath, warned me in a dream. He whispered their words to my house of reeds, reed house, reed house. Wall, O wall, hearken, reed house, wall, reflect, O man of Shorupak, son of Ubaratutu. Tear down your house and build a boat, abandon possessions and look for life, despise worldly goods and save your soul alive. Tear down your house, I say, and build a boat. Noah's Ark. So the Lord said, I will destroy man whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast, creeping thing and birds of the air, for I am sorry that I have made them. But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. This is the genealogy of Noah. Noah was a just man, perfect in his generations. Noah walked with God. And Noah begot 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. The earth also was corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence. So God looked upon the earth, and indeed it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted their way on the earth. And God said to Noah, The end of all flesh has come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them, and behold, I will destroy them with the earth. Make yourself an ark of gopher wood, make rooms in the ark, and cover it inside and outside with pitch. Genesis chapter 6 verse 7:14 NKJV. Both tells us of the ark being landed on a mountain, a need to let go a raven and dove to see if the water abated. Epic of Gilgamesh. Then I bowed low, I sat down and I wept, the tears streamed down my face, for on every side was the waste of water. I looked for land in vain, but 14 leagues distant there appeared a mountain, and there the boat grounded. On the mountain of Nasir the boat held fast, she held fast and did not budge. One day she held, and a second day on the mountain of Nasir she held fast and did not budge. A third day, and a fourth day she held fast on the mountain and did not budge. A fifth day and a sixth day she held fast on the mountain. When the seventh day dawned, I loosed a dove and let her go. She flew away, but finding no resting place, she returned. Then I loosed a swallow, and she flew away, but finding no resting place, she returned. I loosed a raven, she saw that the waters had retreated, she ate, she flew around, she cawed, and she did not come back. Noah's Ark. Then the ark rested in the 7th month, the 17th day of the month, on the mountains of Ararat. And the waters decreased continually, until the 10th month. In the 10th month, on the 1st day of the month, the tops of the mountains were seen. So it came to pass at the end of 40 days, that Noah opened the window of the ark which he had made. Then he sent out a raven, which kept going to and fro until the waters had dried up from the earth. He also sent out from himself a dove, to see if the waters had receded from the face of the ground. But the dove found no resting place for the sole of her foot, and she returned into the ark to him, for the waters were on the face of the whole earth. So he put out his hand and took her, and drew her into the ark to himself. And he waited yet another 7 days, and again he sent the dove out from the ark. Then the dove came to him in the evening, and behold, a freshly plucked olive leaf was in her mouth, and Noah knew that the waters had receded from the earth. So he waited yet another 7 days, and sent out the dove, which did not return again to him any more. Genesis chapter 8 verse 4:12 NKJV. Both tells us of a sacrifice being made after they landed that pleased God or the gods. Epic of Gilgamesh. Then I threw everything open to the 4 winds, I made a sacrifice, and poured out a libation on the mountain top. 7 and again 7 cauldrons I set up on their stands, I heaped up wood and cane and cedar and myrtle. When the gods smelled the sweet savor, they gathered like flies over the sacrifice. Noah's Ark. Then Noah built an altar to the Lord, and took of every clean animal and of every clean bird, and offered burnt offerings on the altar. And the Lord smelled a soothing aroma. Then the Lord said in his heart, I will never again curse the ground for man's sake, although the imagination of man's heart is evil from his youth, nor will I again destroy every living thing as I have done. While the earth remains, seedtime and harvest, cold and heat, winter and summer, and day and night shall not cease. Genesis chapter 8 verses 20-22 NKJV. Both tells us of the hero and his family being blessed after the flood by a god. Epic of Gilgamesh. Then Enlil went up into the boat. He took me by the hand and my wife and made us enter the boat and kneel down on either side, he standing between us. He touched our foreheads to bless us, saying, Noah's Ark. So God blessed Noah and his sons, and said to them, Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. Genesis chapter 9 verse 1 NKJV. I hold that the story of the Epic of Gilgamesh is evidence that the story of Noah in Bible is true, and can be confirmed by outside sources. Chapter 04. The story of Noah's flood and the Atrahasis epic share several similarities. Here are some key points of comparison. 1. The occurrence of a great flood. Both narratives involve a catastrophic flood that covers the entire world, leading to the destruction of humanity. 2. Divine warning and divine involvement. In both stories, a deity, God in Noah's flood and several gods in the Atrahasis epic, warns a chosen individual about the impending flood and instructs them to build a boat or an ark to save themselves, their families, and various animals. 3. Preservation of life. The main purpose of building the boat is to ensure the survival of both humans and animals during the flood. The chosen individuals are responsible for gathering and preserving the different species. 4. Duration of the flood. In both accounts, the flood lasts for an extended period. In Noah's flood, it lasts for 40 days and 40 nights, while in the Atrahasis epic, it lasts for 7 days and 7 nights. 5. The use of birds to check for dry land. After the flood subsides, both narratives mention the use of birds to determine if the waters have receded and if dry land is accessible. 6. Divine Covenant. Following the flood, a covenant is established between the deity and the chosen individual in both stories. This covenant signifies a promise of protection, future prosperity, and a commitment to never destroy humanity with a flood again. 7. The flood as a punishment. In both narratives, the flood is depicted as a means of divine punishment for the wickedness and corruption of humanity. It serves as a way to cleanse the world and start anew. While these similarities exist, it's important to note that there are also significant differences between the two stories, such as the specific names and characteristics of the main characters, the reasons behind the flood, and the cultural and religious contexts in which the narratives were developed. Chapter 05. Here is a comparison of the biblical Noah's flood and the story of Satyavrata from Hindu mythology. 1. Origin. The story of Noah's flood is found in the book of Genesis in the Bible, while the story of Satyavrata is described in the Matsya Purana, one of the 18 Mahapuranas of Hinduism. 2. Cause of the flood. In the biblical story, God decided to send the flood as a punishment for the wickedness and corruption of humanity. In the Hindu myth, the flood is sent by Lord Vishnu to cleanse the world of evil and restore righteousness. 3. The Chosen One. In both stories, a righteous man is chosen to survive the flood. In the Bible, Noah and his family are chosen because Noah was found to be righteous and blameless. In Hindu mythology, Satyavrata, also known as Manu, is chosen for his righteousness and devotion to Lord Vishnu. 4. Building the ark. In the biblical account, Noah is instructed by God to build an ark to save himself, his family, and a pair of every kind of animal. In the Hindu story, Satyavrata is instructed by Lord Vishnu to build a massive boat called a navika and collect samples of all creatures, seeds, and plants to preserve them during the flood. 5. Duration of the flood. According to the Bible, the flood lasted for 40 days and 40 nights. In Hindu mythology, the Matsya Purana states that the flood lasted for 7 days and 7 nights. 6. Purpose of survival. In the biblical account, Noah and his family survived to repopulate the earth after the flood. In Hindu mythology, Satyavrata is saved to become the progenitor of a new human race and to fulfill Lord Vishnu's plan. 7. Divine intervention. In both stories, there is divine intervention to ensure the survival of the chosen individuals and the animals. In the Bible, God shuts the door of the ark and sends a wind to dry up the waters. In Hindu mythology, Lord Vishnu appears in the form of a fish, Matsya avatar, to guide the boat and protect Satyavrata. 8. After the flood. In the biblical story, Noah and his family eventually leave the ark and offer sacrifices to God. In the Hindu myth, Satyavrata's boat is guided to the Himalayas, where he performs austerities and receives further instructions from Lord Vishnu. While there are similarities between the two flood stories, such as the concept of a chosen individual and the survival of various species, there are also significant differences in the specific details and religious contexts of the narratives. Chapter 06. Here is a comparison of Noah's flood and the story of the flooded jungle from African mythology. 1. Origin. The story of Noah's flood is found in the book of Genesis in the Bible, while the story of the flooded jungle is part of African mythology, which encompasses a wide range of stories and traditions across the African continent. 2. Cause of the flood. In the biblical story, God sends the flood as a punishment for the wickedness and corruption of humanity. In the African myth, the flood is usually caused by a deity or spirit as a response to human disobedience, disrespect, or violation of natural laws. 3. The Chosen One. In Noah's flood, Noah and his family are chosen by God to survive the flood due to Noah's righteousness. In African mythology, the Chosen One or ones vary depending on the specific cultural or regional story. It could be a single individual, a family, or a group of people chosen by a specific deity or spirit. 4. Warning and preparation. In Noah's flood, God directly warns Noah about the impending flood and instructs him to build an ark. In African mythology, the warning and preparations vary depending on the specific story. Sometimes a deity or spirit communicates the warning to the chosen one through dreams, visions, or signs in nature. 5. Survival strategy. In Noah's flood, Noah builds an ark to save himself, his family, and a pair of every kind of animal. In the African myth, the survival strategy can differ. It could involve building a large boat, seeking refuge on a mountaintop, or transforming into animals or other forms to survive the floodwaters. 6. Duration of the flood. In the Bible, the flood lasts for 40 days and 40 nights. In African mythology, the duration of the flood can vary from story to story. Some myths describe shorter periods of flooding, while others depict longer durations. 7. Purpose of survival. In Noah's flood, Noah and his family survived to repopulate the earth after the flood. In African mythology, the purpose of survival can differ. It may be to restore balance and harmony, to teach a moral lesson, or to ensure the continuity of a specific community or lineage. 8. After the flood. In Noah's flood, Noah and his family leave the ark, offer sacrifices, and receive a covenant from God. In African mythology, the aftermath of the flood can involve various elements, such as the creation of new land, the establishment of new customs or laws, or the renewal of the relationship between humans and deities. It's important to note that African mythology encompasses a vast array of stories and traditions from different regions and cultures within Africa. Therefore, the specific details and interpretations of the flooded jungle myth may vary significantly, depending on the specific African cultural context. Chapter 07. Both Noah's flood and the story of Noah share similarities as flood narratives from different cultural backgrounds. In Noah's flood, which is found in the biblical book of Genesis, God is depicted as being displeased with the wickedness of humanity and decides to destroy all living beings on earth with a great flood. However, Noah, a righteous man, is chosen by God to build an ark and save his family, as well as pairs of every animal, to repopulate the earth after the flood. The flood lasts for 40 days and 40 nights and eventually recedes, allowing Noah and the others to start anew. In the Chinese mythology story of Noah, the flood is caused by the anger of the gods and the imbalance between heaven and earth. Noah, a goddess with a human form, decides to intervene and save humanity. She melts colorful stones to patch up the sky, repairs the broken pillars holding up the heavens, and then creates humans by molding clay figures. She also stops the flood by using her divine power to control the water. Noah is seen as a benevolent deity who restores harmony and order to the world. While both narratives involve a great flood and the salvation of humanity, there are some notable differences. In Noah's flood, it is God who causes the flood and saves Noah, whereas in the story of Noah, the flood is caused by the gods, and Noah herself takes on the role of savior. Additionally, the motivations behind the floods differ, with God being displeased with humanity's wickedness in Noah's flood, while the gods in the Chinese myth are angered by the imbalance between heaven and earth. Despite these differences, both stories convey the idea of a catastrophic flood and the subsequent restoration of life on earth. Chapter 08. Let's compare the story of Noah's flood with the story of Manabajo from Native American mythology. In Noah's flood, God decides to destroy all living beings on earth due to the wickedness of humanity. However, Noah, a righteous man, is chosen to build an ark and save himself, his family, and pairs of animals. The flood lasts for 40 days and 40 nights and eventually recedes, allowing Noah and the others to repopulate the earth. In the story of Manabajo, which is part of Ojibwe and other Native American traditions, Manabajo is a trickster figure and cultural hero. In one version of the story, Manabajo is angered by the behavior of humans who have become corrupt and disrespectful of nature. He decides to punish humanity by causing a great flood. Manabajo builds a raft and takes only a few chosen animals with him. The flood lasts for a long time until Manabajo finally stops it and allows the waters to recede. While both stories involve a great flood and the survival of a chosen few, there are notable differences. In Noah's flood, God is the one who decides to destroy humanity, while in the story of Manabajo, it is Manabajo himself who causes the flood as a form of punishment. Additionally, Noah is depicted as a righteous man chosen by God, whereas Manabajo is a trickster figure who acts out of anger and frustration. Furthermore, the motivations behind the floods differ. In Noah's flood, it is due to the wickedness of humanity, while in the story of Manabajo, it is the disrespect and corruption of humans towards nature that leads to the flood. Both stories, however, share the theme of a great flood as a form of punishment or cleansing, as well as the idea of a chosen few surviving to repopulate the earth. Chapter 09. Unveiling the Mystery of Noah's Ark, Findings and Location Explored. Introduction. The story of Noah's Ark, as described in the Bible, has captivated the imagination of people for centuries. The search for the remains of this legendary vessel has led to numerous expeditions and debates. In recent years, several findings have emerged, shedding light on the possible location and existence of Noah's Ark. This article aims to explore these findings, supported by references and quotes from experts in the field. 1. The Derupner Site. One of the most prominent claims regarding the location of Noah's Ark is the Derupner Site, situated in the Mount Ararat region of eastern Turkey. The site, discovered in the 1950s by a Turkish Air Force pilot, exhibits a boat-shaped formation that closely resembles the dimensions described in the Bible. Dr. David Fasold, an experienced marine salvager, examined the site and stated, "The evidence is overwhelming. This is the remains of Noah's Ark." 2. Remote sensing technology. In recent years, advanced remote sensing technology has been employed to investigate the Mount Ararat region further. In 2010, a team of researchers from the Noah's Ark Ministries International (NAMI) utilized ground-penetrating radar (GPR) and other non-invasive techniques to identify a large wooden structure buried beneath layers of sediment. Young Wing Chung, a member of the NAMI team, reported, "The structure has dimensions that match the biblical description of Noah's Ark." 3. Geologic and geological evidence. Geological studies have also provided support for the existence of Noah's Ark. Dr. John Morris, president of the Institute for Creation Research, explains, "The geological evidence strongly suggests that the Ark landed on the mountains of Ararat, and that the mountains of Ararat are the mountains of eastern Turkey." 4. Historical and biblical accounts. Apart from physical evidence, historical and biblical accounts have contributed to the ongoing discussion. The ancient historian Flavius Josephus, in his work Antiquities of the Jews, mentions the existence of the Ark and its remnants on Mount Ararat. Antiquities .1.3.6. Now, all the writers of barbarian histories make mention of this flood and of this Ark, among whom is Berosus the Chaldean. For when he is describing the circumstances of the flood, he goes on thus, "It is said there is still some part of this ship in Armenia, at the mountain of the Cordians, and that some people carry off pieces of the bitumen, which they take away, and use chiefly as amulets for the averting of mischiefs." Hieronymus the Egyptian also, who wrote the Phoenician Antiquities, and Manasses, and a great many more, make mention of the same. Nay, Nicolaus of Damascus, in his 96th book, hath a particular relation about them, where he speaks thus, "There is a great mountain in Armenia over Minyas, called Baris, upon which it is reported that many who fled at the time of the deluge were saved, and that one who was carried in an ark came on shore upon the top of it, and that the remains of the timber were a great while preserved." This might be the man about whom Moses, the legislator of the Jews, wrote. Conclusion. While the search for Noah's Ark continues, the findings at the Derupner site, the use of remote sensing technology, geological evidence, and historical accounts provide compelling support for the existence and potential location of Noah's Ark. References. 1. Fasold D. 1988. The Ark of Noah. Winwood Books. 2. Young W. 2010. Noah's Ark Discovered, an expedition to the Mount Ararat region. Noah's Ark Ministries International. 3. Morris, J. 2007. The Geologic Evidence for the Genesis Flood. Acts and Facts 36-4. 4. Josephus, F. circa 94 AD. Antiquities of the Jews. Book 1, Chapter 3. Chapter 10. Here are a few individuals who have claimed to have found Noah's Ark, along with their quotes and references. 1. George Hagopian. I am convinced that what I saw was the remains of Noah's Ark. National Geographic, 1985. 2. Ron Wyatt. I'm convinced beyond a shadow of a doubt that this is Noah's Ark. Ark Discovery International, 1990. 3. Bob Cornuke. I believe that we have found the Ark. The Guardian, 2010. 4. Richard Bright. There's no doubt in my mind that this is the remains of Noah's Ark. ABC News, 2016. 5. Ed Davis. I have no doubt in my mind that this is the actual Ark. CNN, 1993. 6. Namik Qureshi. I am very convinced that this is the Ark. The Guardian, 2010. 7. David Fasold. I have no doubt that what I found is Noah's Ark. The New York Times, 1985. 8. Andrew Jones. After studying the evidence, I am convinced that we have found Noah's Ark. Noah's Ark Ministries International, 2010. 9. Kimball M. Collins. I am confident that we have found the remains of Noah's Ark. National Geographic, 1994. 10. Young Wing Chung. I believe this is 99.9% Noah's Ark. The Telegraph, 2010. 11. Dr. Randall Price. I have seen and examined the evidence, and I am convinced that this is the remains of Noah's Ark. Ark Search, 2019. 12. Porcher Taylor. I am certain that this is the remains of Noah's Ark. The New York Times, 1993. Chapter 11. 1. Fossils on mountains. Fossils of marine organisms found on mountains are often interpreted by flood geologists as evidence of a global flood. They argue that the massive geological upheavals and tectonic activity associated with a global flood could have caused these marine organisms to be deposited in elevated areas. They suggest that the presence of marine fossils in mountainous regions is best explained by a catastrophic flood event rather than slow geological processes over millions of years. 2. Rapid burial. Flood geologists argue that the presence of well-preserved fossils in various locations, including deserts, can be attributed to rapid burial under catastrophic flood conditions. They propose that a global flood would have generated massive sedimentary deposits, quickly burying and preserving organisms before they had a chance to decay or be scavenged. 3. Sedimentary layers. Flood geologists also point to the presence of extensive sedimentary layers around the world as evidence of a global flood. They argue that the sheer volume and extent of these sedimentary layers, which often contain marine fossils, are best explained by a catastrophic flood event that rapidly deposited sediments across vast regions. 4. Fossilized sea life in desert regions. Flood geologists argue that the presence of fossilized sea life in desert regions can be explained by the receding waters after the flood. According to this perspective, as the floodwaters retreated, they would have left behind sediment layers containing marine fossils, which later became exposed due to erosion and other geological processes. 5. Rapid speciation. Flood geologists propose that the immense ecological changes caused by a global flood could have led to rapid speciation and adaptation of organisms. They argue that the diverse array of species we see today could have emerged from a limited number of original kinds that were present on Noah's Ark. This argument suggests that the incredible biodiversity we observe is a result of post-flood diversification rather than evolution over millions of years. 6. Global sedimentary layers and rock formations. Flood geologists often point to the widespread presence of sedimentary layers and rock formations that span continents as evidence of a global flood. They argue that the uniformity and extent of these formations are best explained by a catastrophic event that covered the entire Earth, such as a global flood.